Welcome to Vision Profiles Podcast. Join us, two dedicated Apple Vision Pro users, as we dive into everything from hardware and software to apps and the latest updates in the world of Apple Vision Pro. I'm Marty, a faculty at Kent State University, podcaster, and an avid Apple product fan.
And I'm Eric Bolden. I work in IT, but my interest is in finding interesting ways to share content. Currently, photography of, cold plants, lots of cold birds, and cold panoramic sequences.
And cold photographers who are out taking cold pictures of cold items is what you should say.
Yes.
How has your week been? Is anything earth-shaking with you with the Vision Pro or?
Well, you mean related to the excitement from last week where nothing worked? It was glorious. I had my virtual display and everything was working well, and I went to bed and I woke up and my display was gone.
Wow.
And the Vision Pro didn't respond, and I plugged it and I looked, and there's a little light on the battery, and it blinked a couple of times and then it went away. And if you tapped it, it blinked a couple of times and it went away. And it's like, oh crap. I can't afford to lose it, and I'm not sure I want to buy a whole nother one. Maybe I'll need to, but took it to the Apple store. They looked at it, they tapped at it, then they said, we don't have anybody here that can look at that right now. You have to come back later. So that was like 2 p.m. So I'd come back at 6:30 when the person who did Vision Pro examinations was in, and so I came back and he looked at it and said, and because there's not really a whole lot to diagnose if it doesn't turn on. And he said, well, it's not wet. When I tilt it, water doesn't pour out of it. There are no cracked screens. So I said, well, can you just grab a battery and try a different one? And he said, well, we don't have any batteries to give you, but I can swipe one from one of the demo units just to see, does it power on?
Yeah.
So we did that, powered right up, no issue. So that was enough for them to say, yeah, it's a battery, and let me know they had no batteries. So I said, well, how about a new battery? That they had. So I ended up buying a new battery, and then they ordered the replacement battery, and that it took like a couple days. I went back in, got the replacement battery. Now I have 2 batteries just in case. And it all works. And I did not have to buy a new Apple Vision Pro. It was just a battery.
So the problem was the battery, but giving you a new one was not kind of covered by warranty or anything?
A new battery?
Yeah.
They had no new batteries. So they had a new battery. They had no repair unit batteries. So it's okay. Different. Different stacks. So normally they have a battery in stock, and if you need a battery, they can pull one from the repair side and hand it to you. Same as if you had some other component, strap, whatever, they would pull it out of their repair depot items. Evidently, batteries isn't something they had in stock. They said usually, I don't know if they've had a run of bad batteries or people are really using the Apple Vision Pro a lot more, but they had no batteries other than the one new one, which I now have.
So you had to purchase that is what it was.
Well, if I wanted to use my Apple Vision Pro as my virtual display and not have to wait for 2 or 3 days, and I've discovered that I have a real liking of the virtual display, and I mourned its loss.
Yeah,
I'm using it maybe 6-8 hours a day now. So
in a couple of days after that, they got the replacement for you.
Yep. And then I brought the old battery. Yeah. So I brought the old battery in. They swapped it with a new one, pressed the button, pulled the cord out, snapped the cord into the new battery. They took the old battery away and handed me a battery. Now, that wasn't perfectly smooth because something didn't get checked in quite right. So it looked like they were going to charge me for the battery, but they didn't. It was weird because it rang through as my paying cash for the tax, but I didn't. So somehow their system didn't know how to handle a replacement battery. They made it work, but it wasn't something they're doing a lot of, which is maybe a good sign for everybody else.
A couple of questions in the chat room from Oliver. Did they determine the cause of the battery failure?
They didn't determine the cause, just that if they replaced the battery, the unit worked as expected.
Okay. And then the second one was, is this your own unit, or are you still sharing it?
This is the sharing unit. I was that close to just buying a new one, but I don't really have the money right now because I bought two Mac Minis instead. And then I had the battery problem. But yes, I checked ahead of time. I had one reserved. So I could have picked up a new one if it wasn't the battery. Because otherwise they said they would have to send it in. So I was happy it was the battery this time.
Yeah, I remember you putting something in one of the chats that you had a battery issue with it. And so this is the story. Very cool.
Yeah.
I have two batteries I bought them when I got the unit, and I primarily use one. In fact, the other one I still have wrapped in the paper, and that's the way that I designate this is the battery that I never use unless I really have to, versus the battery that I have. I can't quite figure out every time why I pick it up, the light starts flashing. I don't know if it's a motion sensor.
If you plug it in, it starts flashing. If you tap it, jiggle it, move it, lift it up, it starts flashing. Otherwise, it doesn't show anything.
Why? What purpose does it serve if I pick it up? What does the flashing serve?
Well, in theory, it's a working battery, and then it can give you the status with the color. I'm not entirely sure because I can't tell the color changes. But yeah. So but there's a pattern that's supposed to be there.
Well, that's I'm glad you told that story. When I said what's new, I completely forgot that you had mentioned that you had some problems with battery, and I haven't heard a battery story yet. I worry about my cable on the battery because it is all bent up like bad shoelaces. And I'm wondering if that's going to be the death of me on that battery, or it's going to stop working or not be functional, and then they go in and they pop out the cable and replace the cable. But I haven't had any problems with the battery. I do, and then I've got that backup one. And I bought that primarily because I wanted an extra battery for flights when I do things cross-country. I just wanted one that I could pop on. So that was my logic with that. And that's the only time I really carry the second battery with me is when I'm on flights.
Well, at least in that case, you've got two cables. So if the one cable fails, you'll have to keep popping it out. But
oh yeah, I guess I could. I just don't like to do surgery on my equipment. And I guess
as a bonus, when they did all of this stuff and gave me the swapping out, the swapping out battery kit comes with the cable remover, and they didn't keep it and asked me if I want it, so I now have the little cable remover.
What is it? A hole? I mean, it looks like a SIM card.
It's just a little pin, and it basically, people use the iPhone SIM removal tool. Mm-hmm. It's like that, except this one looks fancier. It's like a kind of a silvery case with a pin at the end of it.
It looks a little like a $3,500 pin
removal tool. Yeah. Very fancy.
Yeah, I'm reading these articles this week. I can't. What is it? Tom's Source or whatever it is. None of all these articles start with a reminder of how much the damn thing costs. And it's like, I don't know if that's just the prologue for every article they have to write and why they have to. But anyways, let's talk about news. The Vision Pro could be offering gaming fun with Sony VR hand controllers. And that's news because, and what happened was Gurman put it out, and then every Mac source basically wrote the same article. So this one is Cult of Mac. Then you have Apple Insider, which has an article about Sony partnering with Apple Vision controllers. We've seen this with folks who are have been, if you follow Reddit and such, you see this with folks who are really into gaming. They'll talk about how they're able to hack up their system to be able to use Sony controllers, and you see videos of people playing it. Well, those, I think, were the standard Sony controllers, and from what I can tell, I'm not a gamer, but those, from what I've read, are the standard Sony controllers that people are able to use. They've been able to do that with the Vision Pro for some time. These are the VR ones, which will bring in a whole potential for the controllers to be used with VR games. And then the rumor goes a little further and says that it could also be a scenario where they're going to be starting to develop VR gaming on the Vision Pro. Which is pretty cool. Think about it. The stories all the time have been how Apple should just go out and buy themselves a big gaming business, and we're seeing the potential of them doing some really interesting stuff with large gaming systems. I find this one particularly ironic. Do you see what the picture is there? Mm-hmm. That is the same graphic that's used in the one of the apps that we covered last week, which was Simply Piano. Oh. And they used it for the VR gaming stuff and the controller stuff. And
I guess people are going to have to start taking more pictures wearing the VR headset.
Yeah. So this I think is cool. Rumor claims that Apple and Sony are working to bring PlayStation. This comes from patently Apple. And, rumor du jour. I love the way he says that, or the author says this. This is a rumor du jour that PlayStation's VR2's controllers to the Vision Pro, which is pretty cool. But they're saying this opens it up to a lot of other third-party devices that Apple could also do, or having a whole suite of games that Apple could, Sony could be selling through Apple. So I think all in all, it's pretty cool. And, it's this one from Macworld talks about it being a fresh gaming strategy for folks with this. So we'll see.
Do you think that'll create any problem with with developers maybe not doing quite as much work with hand control without a controller? I mean, if all of a sudden there's a controller that shows up, would they stop doing work? Because it seems like you have to spend a little bit of effort to get that right. And there are a couple of games that have done it really well.
Yeah. We're going to talk about we talked about one of the games last week, Little Cities. And I had a difficult time with using my fingers to be able to do stuff. And then, and I'm finding that occurring with a bunch of games. I did that, but controllers, because I've owned a Meta 3, controllers are set up to really kind of be point and click. Now, Meta's now moved to you can use your virtual hands to do stuff with. Frankly, I like the Meta controllers than trying to do things with my hands. I just seem to have better impact or reaction using the controllers. So as we mentioned before the show, Daniel sold me on getting some controllers that are being made for Apple Vision Pro through Kickstarter. And they were supposed to come to us, and Daniel was really excited about it. He talked it on a show a ways back. And so, I went ahead and dropped the money on it, and still not here. They were supposed to be here first week in December or early December, and now people are saying, "Are we going to get these things by Christmas?" And the person's going, "Yeah, it is. We're shipping them out. We'll get them to you. We're shipping them out." But Daniel was all excited about controllers, and now Sony's come around, or Mark Gurman is saying Sony has come around, and they're going to be doing some cool stuff with Apple. But I like the idea of a gaming strategy. I mean, not being a gamer, I would like to talk to some folks that I know are gamers and also are tech savvy and know about headsets to see what their reactions is. I think of Ben Rathig to get his idea about what does he think about this, because he's always on Apple about the gaming issues. And how Apple should just buy a large company and let them do their thing with Apple under Apple's flag. And so I really kind of want to ask him that question if I get a chance to say, what does he think about this Sony now connecting with Apple Vision Pro for that? So we'll have all of these links in the show notes, and they'll be available for you to be able to go to the links. Like I said, there are even more articles than what I put in the show notes, but then like another more recent article would come out in 2 days, and I'm like, let me throw it in the show notes. So the latest stuff is probably at the bottom of that batch in the news, and that I think Macworld came out with the latest one, so you'll see that in the batch. However, this came out just after our last show, and it was an article that was bantered around. I know we talked about it on In Touch with iOS, and this article is talking about how Porsche is using Vision Pro to unveil new sports cars in different ways. There is an app that is used for enterprise and demonstrating enterprise. And it's one of the apps of the year that we talked about last week to show jet engine parts and how they work. And essentially, if you look at this story and you look at the graphics associated with it, Porsche's doing the same thing, essentially breaking apart their engine using Apple Vision Pro.
It's kind of neat to give sort of a virtual see-through diagram to an object that you can't really take apart in front of somebody. So
that's new, or somewhat new in what we're talking about. More enterprise use of it. And that came out probably Tuesday of last week. So it's been out and in the wild for a while, but I thought it was worth mentioning considering we're talking about enterprise use of Apple. Two articles tied together, and I think it was the Verge interview with Tim Cook. That was it Verge or Wired?
Yeah, I don't remember now.
It's Wired. And it basically is talking about how Tim Cook tried to put the rumors to, he defends the sales of Vision Pro's performance with 3 words. Those 3 words, early adopter product. So if you want to get involved and you want to know what it's about, think of it as an early adopter product.
Which is, I think, a really good way to think about it. It's, I can't, there have been so many times that people have said, oh, if only I could have seen the early version of some product, or if only I could see their technology labs. And this is one of the few times I can remember where you actually get the really cool product and get to see it early and use it, and it's functional.
Yeah, and it's and they keep adding to it, so it's not like a one trick pony essentially.
Yes.
The other article, I'll switch right to it. I didn't quite understand, but this came out in the interview that Tim Cook and Apple had Stevie Wonder demo the Apple Vision Pro. I didn't quite understand this, and it doesn't go into much detail in the article. It's like we don't bolt on accessibility at the end of the design process. It's embedded in the design process was the quote. and they like to get Stevie's feedback on it. So he had a demo with the Vision Pro, and that his feedback was key in designing the headset. Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of interesting. It's nice to hear that they're doing testing earlier in the process.
Yeah, and getting feedback from Stevie Wonder. I mean, I like Stevie Wonder, respect him, love his music. I just don't understand why he's the go-to guy on this.
Well, I'm assuming they have some other people as well, but everybody knows who he is. So
yeah. So there is that kind of thing with people know, like you said, know who he is. So there's an article that again came out a little. It's a little after the fact. It is from Apple Insider, and I've seen these diagrams before. It's basically saying that Apple wants to cram sensors for everything into the Apple Vision Pro. We might have talked on this show or another show about the headband as potentially being useful for some type of biometric. And the article, and this is from Apple Insider, does kind of show some diagrams. The other thing was the nose. You just got that funky little piece of cloth down by the nose. And let me see if I can get to the diagram here, if I can get these pop-ups. So yeah, the idea of putting or patenting a nose noise ID. The audio signal, the recording breathing audio signal may be digitized and analyzed based on spectral characteristics in order to determine one or more breathing characteristics of the user's breathing, says the patient. Now, I get it for sleep apnea, but you're not going to wear this thing while you're asleep. And there are other ways of determining that without putting a headset on. So it's a new category in Apple Fitness, which uses nasal sensors to present a breathing exercise to a user, or it could be part of a big health project, comparing the user's breathing characteristics to historical breathing data from other users, and then using the head strap for a variety of potential sensors. My guess is those are cranial, so it's probably something with EKGs, is it EEGs? Electroencephalograph? Yeah, EEGs.
Yeah.
And the potential of using sensors in those cases for that purpose. Brainwave activity for your health purposes. And so an interesting adaptation looking at some of the sensors or potential sensors in the Apple Vision Pro. So
I can almost see it now. Choose your own adventure, scary movies. And then, it adjusts and you only get a certain amount of scare. And if it's too much, they kind of tone it down.
Because it's rating how much you're scared by brain it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or the breathing, like you get the panic breathing and then they tone down the scariness.
Yeah. The other big piece of news this week is how would you like to have an Apple Vision Pro that has cellular in it? Eric?
I'm gonna really need the 2 batteries then.
You think it's going to be a battery drain if they put cellular in it?
I think that maybe it will be there but not active. And maybe they'll turn it on because they have it in the iPad. And in many ways, the Vision Pro is a kind of oddball iPad. So anything in the iPad could show up in the Vision Pro and kind of make sense. So maybe, but it sounded like whatever that chipset was, it combined a bunch of things like Bluetooth and the modem and maybe Wi-Fi. I don't totally remember.
Yeah,
so maybe.
I think they said we're not going to see this till 2026 anyways. That's when Apple's modem chips will be better developed. And so Bloomberg reported yesterday it provides a much more detailed roadmap on Apple's modem plans, which includes cellular coming to a couple of new products, including Apple Vision Pro. So you take your phone calls or you use it for data. I'm just not sure. Data, really?
I would give a lot to have cellular in a MacBook. That would save me such hassle of trying to pair a phone and get the data that way.
Yeah,
that's how I
get that.
use my iPad. I've got an iPad with cellular because it is faster than trying to pair it with something.
Yeah,
and it just works.
Okay, so my question is, what function does it have in a Vision Pro?
Well, I mean, a lot of what you do on a Vision Pro involves a network connection.
Yeah, so you're skipping the network connection by, it's done in Wi-Fi. Well, you can do it in Wi-Fi. I guess you can pair it, but
yeah.
But particularly just having cellular connection independent of anything else is a value added piece for Vision Pro.
I think so. I'm still not convinced we'll see it, but it certainly is an added convenience. I mean, like in my iPad, I certainly could pair that with a phone and use it, but it just works. It's more convenient. Yeah, and I don't have to lug along one other device. I mean,
so 9 to 5 is saying I could see passengers wanting to use the Vision Pro while on a road trip, hopefully not while driving, as a way to watch shows, movies along the journey. Definitely not. Even though the pass through might be good, you don't want to use it when you're driving. Cellular will also enable productivity in places where Wi-Fi isn't necessarily accessible. And I worry about that with my iPad. When I don't have cellular, I wind up patching it to my phone. But there are also going to be places where cellular is not very good. So,
well, there's one other thing you're not thinking about, and that is Find My.
Yeah.
The Vision Pro is really nice now, but imagine it with the 5G chip and with an M5 chip in it and have it be a little bit faster, a little bit nicer. There's more of them out there, and all of a sudden somebody wants one and it goes walking off. If it's got a modem in it, it's a lot easier to track.
So I don't want to say a bunch of articles, but we have some articles. This one is 9 to 5. Mac Rumors also talks about a 5G modem and the potential for having a 5G modem. They're saying the first version of the modem will have a slower sub 6 gigahertz 5G connectivity. I'm sorry, Eric, did I cut you off?
Yeah, well, no, I was going to say the same thing, is that that modem is supposed to show up in one of the new iPhones first, but it's not going to show up in all of them, I don't think. So it sounds like they're going to bring it out, kind of test it a little bit, but it's not going to be the high-end phones. So maybe that.
You think the SE, or is that too much of a gift?
Isn't there supposed to be an ultra thin Air version or something?
Yeah.
It sounded like there was like a newer, lighter phone, and that would be a good candidate for that.
Yeah, 2006, I think, or maybe 2007, they're going to do the Air, the thinner phone.
So, and maybe they'll put in something else before that, but I would think they would try it in a couple devices first and then roll it out.
I don't know if folks in the chat room have any ideas about how these modems in a Vision Pro could be used, but it's curious. I think it's, again, sort of another product. Here's the article from The Verge where it's talking about putting it in Macs. Yeah, and I would definitely.
I'm really looking.
I would bite on. Yeah, I would like that. And then, and I think it would have to be a little bit sweeter than just putting a regular one in that I could hotspot to on my phone with. There'd have to be something about that modem in the laptop that would make me want to get a new laptop for that purpose. And here they're talking about the SC next year, following entry-level iPads and iPhone that's 2 millimeters thinner. But it says it could debut the custom modem in the iPhone SE next year. That would be fun.
That could be good too.
So that's the news on the modem. And I'm not seeing anything out of the chat room in terms of ideas with that. But yeah, we'll see. The next thing to talk about is the beta. We've had a crazy week with betas because last week we didn't have one at the time of the show. And then 2 days later, I'm in touch with iOS, and Dave and I are arguing between, is this the RC version, or is this the 4 that came out, or are we talking about the 3? And essentially the components that went with what the additions were, and we determined it was the RC version. But then just today,
there's another
one comes out. And, it adds support for watching 5 sports games. They have MLB and Major League Soccer. I find it ironic that the MLB season is all over with, so I don't care about watching 5 games because there's not 5 games I can watch at this point. And I don't know where MLS is. I think they finished their season too. So, but those are the ones that Apple has a relationship with. MLS and MLB, so we'll see with that. That's one aspect of it. The other, and they were talking about 5K, kind of like having 2 5K screens, the equivalent of that. And then also being able to watch spatial video when it's embedded in Safari. That was another function that was added or part of it. So we just need to find those websites that have spatial video in it. It'd almost be fun to, if you had a good spatial video, you could send it to me, and then I would try to see if I could put it into just a dead website to see what it looks like.
Yeah, I'll send you a couple.
Yeah, or, send me the link, which then I'll put in as if you could send me the link, but the embed code for it, that would be even cooler. Because then I just embed it in a site, and we can field test it in Safari to see if it's available with 2.4. So yeah, a couple articles on, no, we don't have a couple articles on that, or at least I don't have them set up to go. But just the idea that we have now a release candidate. Again. So, a couple of weeks ago, you said, they'll have it by last Tuesday. And
well, I was saying Tuesday or Wednesday of this week. So, because 9th or 10th is what I was guessing.
Well, they blew you.
Sorry, Monday and Tuesday.
They blew it because they came out last week. And I was going to go, Eric, you got it wrong. But we got a second one.
The final version. Yeah.
We got a second one. So when will we see the final version? Next week?
No idea. It should still be this week.
Really? So a second release candidate followed by...
I don't know why there was a second release. Maybe they needed something in it and hadn't managed to get it there. So it wouldn't surprise me if it was as early as tomorrow. Otherwise, maybe Friday.
Maybe they spelled somebody's name wrong, and they're too embarrassed to say that. And so let's just put out another release candidate. They'll think it's important stuff. Entertainment. There's a couple of things going on in entertainment. I am a sucker for Scarlett Johansson. And sure enough, I don't know if you've seen this. It came out this last Friday. And my wife is a bit of a sucker for Channing Tatum. So, it all balances out in the long run.
It was a good movie, though.
You watched it. You did watch it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Scarlett Johansson stole the show, I think. But my wife would probably say Channing Tatum stole the show. I think if you grew up in the space race like I did, and you remember 1969, well, I think it kind of did a good job of capturing that. The style, the pace, the whole process with it I thought was pretty good in terms of the film. Now, is it the best film in the world? Is it really a very good rom-com? But just to hang out, to watch all the stuff about what happened, trying to get people on the moon. Some of it, of course, the stories were rumors, about the false landing. They shot the false version of the landing. But they sure wrote that in an entertaining way. So yeah, I would say, and I've watched it as I go in to look at things in Apple TV Plus. You see it go from like third to first. Silo was first, now it's second, and so
Yeah.
you see, and then shrinking is in there too. You see these things jockeying back and forth, but yeah, it was entertaining. Good piece of movie there.
Well, and I enjoyed a couple of the kind of side bits, like the being able to into town to an electronics store and raid parts and not having to wait for them to show up from, an online order. That was a nice touch.
Yeah.
Or the text being able to kind of put together some sort of random thing in the last second. I won't
Yeah,
say more. I don't want to spoil it, but it was nice.
yeah, and that might all be fantasy to fit the side plot, but it
But it was
was
fun.
in the style and the clothes and the cars and even the way the thing was shot. It felt like it was out of it's kind of that Wes Anderson kind of brightness in every scene. It felt like it came from was part of the '60s. And late '60s. And as I said, as a kid, that was my hero. That whole space thing was the hero's part of me. So seeing that in that last part and the importance of it, the significance of it was pretty cool. Another piece, and I tried to find a link for it, but there's going to be a new immersive video coming out supposedly this Friday, and it's the diving video. And you've seen some clips of it when you kind of go to the here's what immersive can do video with the promo video for immersive. You'll see some pictures of divers with sharks and feeding sharks or fending them off or something like that. But apparently they're doing a diving one. And that is supposed to be released this Friday as another separate video. So you have to think of it in terms of all the environments that they're doing these kind of immersive experiences with. High wire, the action stuff with the parquet, if you consider the submerged videos sort of a movie, sort of a first person placed experience using Vision Pro or using spatial video. And then you've got the elephants one, which I think is pretty cool in terms of being in an environment and telling that story. And then underwater, the idea of doing something underwater and telling the story that way too. So they're sort of on a roll of saying you can do it here, and you can do it here, and you can do it here, and this is another way to do it. They're not long. They're never long enough. And then the music piece. I mean, the differences between The Weekend and the difference between the Show for One, and how that was shot and the way it created a different immersion experience. So I think they're really trying to show the opportunities to get people along to say, hey, I had an idea, I wanted to do something, and I saw that it can be done this way, or the story can be told using this in a different way. So look for it in Apple TV Plus, this new, supposedly, this new immersive diving video. I saw it referenced in Reddit, and then I remembered, oh yeah, they have shown clips of that.
A piece of it.
In different places. So it doesn't surprise me that they're doing sort of, and they have promoted those kinds of things. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's true, that Friday that video will be coming out. Just a reminder, you can follow the live stream on youtube.com at Vision Profiles, Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, or catch the video on YouTube or audio on any podcatcher service. We've got people in a live chat room with us, and that's always kind of fun to see people following along and getting into the discussion and raising questions and challenging us as need be with new ideas. So catch us live or catch us on the playback if you like to. Let's skip to the best pro apps, which I don't know if you had a chance to go through this article. I'll share it so folks can see it. And of course, the link is posted or will be posted on our in our show notes. But it's pretty much everything that, I don't know, it's a kitchen sink article. It's published on December 5th, and it goes through different things that you can do with it, but it gets down to categories. And this is where I have some disagreement. It just seems like they threw some things up, and there are points where I'm going, did they really look at this app? And I'm anxious to hear your reactions to some of these. But these are supposedly the best apps. I looked at the instructor for driving instructors, which seemed pretty cool. I mean, all of these are hot links, so you can go to them. Microsoft Teams, it's not good in 2 dimensions, let alone 3 dimensions, but it's functional. And why it's in there, I'm not
although
sure.
it doesn't work in every case. Like the version of Teams that we use, I can't log in. So
yeah,
not yet available.
When I was going through the article, I tried to figure out what the asterisks were, and you have to page down to find out that the asterisk indicates that these are only Apple Vision Pro apps, that they're not on any other platform. So the rest of these have been ported basically in. With no determination in terms of whether or not these were redesigned in any form or fashion for the various. So here's the numerics in terms of numbers for business. And then you have developer tools, but there's no indication in terms of how much they've been adjusted for Apple Vision Pro. So developer tools, I think I've heard of haptics, and I've heard of Territory Storefront Switcher. But the one that keeps coming up is Runestone Text Editor, and it's really a text editor for people who are editing code. And there you see it as an example. Education Cell Walk, which I think is pretty interesting. Complete Hard X, Exploring Mars, those are all only Apple Vision Pro platforms. And then you have Flippy with flashcards. I have that. So if you wanted to learn things, you can do it through flashcards that way. School Assistant, which is a planner, and Schooly, which is a school organizer. Entertainment, AirDraw, Finger Paint. I've got that. That's kind of fun. What is that? Oh, that's the Complete Heart. It's kind of fun. Art Authority Museum is also fun too. It's a walkthrough.
Yeah. And they occasionally update that one.
Yeah. DJ is, be your own DJ. That was a big seller and a big entertainment piece. Disney Plus, of course, Hold the World, IMAX, which, it's a great app if you want to pay $14 for each, video that everything in there is kind of purchasable. So I have the app, but I don't think I bought anything in it. Infuse, which we've talked about, Gucci Immersive Film, NBA, which we've talked about, MLB, which I've spoken about, Plate Smasher, which is simply smashing plates, Pocket Rocket for Vision, Spatial Sprinkles. These are just kind of one-trick ponies in a lot of ways. Smash plates, throw sprinkles all over the room. Television, which is that app that puts your video in what looks like a television. I never got that. I know people really liked it, but I just never got that. And then you have Vimeo. Finance, different kinds of finance apps that have been ported over. Food and drink, Crouton, Recipe Manager, I've got that. None of these are particularly, at least the ones here, are particularly just for Apple Vision Pro. There's Crouton, which is kind of neat. Games, Cut the Rope, Game Room, Just Hoops, Black Box, Balloon TD, Jetpack Joyride. Again, not being a gamer with this. Spatial Dream, I'm aware of, and I think I might have that. Synth Riders, I have. Tiny Fins, I have. Because and here's Black Box. Yeah, I've got that. That's kind of a trip where you're trying to control the bubbles and control the designs around you, and you take action on one and it creates another action. Graphics, Adobe Firefly. or generative AI, beautiful things. You have any reaction to any of this stuff, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's in the list. There are missing items, so I don't know if they just pulled from stuff that they previously wrote about, and there's nobody kind of going back and using it so that they've seen new things. Like what is the thing? Moon
Moon,
Player.
yeah, Moon Player.
I would have expected that in there because it can do some things nothing else can do. I would have put the operating system update in there as like a really critical thing. Yeah, Infuse I've definitely used. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting list. Some of these I definitely would agree with. It's nice that they marked the ones that were Vision Pro only. I think that does make a difference. Yeah, I'd really like to see a list in about 6 months. A list after the new operating system comes out and people are able to look at some of the new things that are out there now. That would be kind of interesting. Still, yeah.
For Flight Voyager. They have a picture of it there. Is an app.
Yeah, that one's good.
That's pretty cool.
That's just fun to watch. I could watch that for just have it on the side, just let it play. That's really cool.
Yeah, news ticker I have, but generally the news that comes up on it is so general and there's not a lot of depth to it. They don't have a lot of. So I'm less excited about trying to read news from a ticker on that, but it is a Vision Pro only.
Yeah.
Now, what about these? You've got some photo and video options here. Bloom Raw Image Editor, Explore POV.
I've got that one's good.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And Spatial Media Kit.
Yeah, the Spatial Media Toolkit. I think there's some new examples that have come out recently that look kind of interesting. So that'll be fun to kind of keep an eye on.
Okay, so here you go. Productivity Bezel, which is iPhone mirroring. And I haven't tried that yet. Fantastical, which is my go-to calendar. Microsoft Excel, Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft Word, OmniFocus 4, which I have, and OmniPlan 4, which I also have and use. Planny.
I missed the Team Viewers out. I'll have to give that a try.
Things by Culture Code. So yeah, that's reference Sky Guide and Night Sky. Both very cool apps within Vision Pro. Shopping. I mean, this is a long list of stuff to play with. So if you're bored and you want to spend some Apple Cash in some, probably most cases, this one is where I kind of lost it. The social networking piece. And I don't know. I don't think, because what's missing from this list so far, do you have an idea where I'm going with this?
Yeah, like InSpace?
InSpace. Everybody I know who has one of these things has been in InSpace. And it's sort of the get-together social platform. I wouldn't call it necessarily networking, because when you think of social networking, you think of Twitter and things like that. It's not that. It's a community. It's a social community. And everybody I know uses it, really digs it. And it just surprises me that it didn't show up. So much so that I wrote a comment on it in this article. We're getting near the end. Flight Vision Flight Tracker. I got that on my phone. Oh, but that's only Apple Vision Pro. Okay, so that shows up like a flight board. I know what that is.
Oh, yeah.
Moon Portal. There you go. But that's
something else.
That's something else. It's not the video piece. And then utilities. Of course, nothing specific. But here's where you go, only on Apple Vision. So that's, according to 9to5Mac, the best Vision Pro apps. Cletus is put in the chat room. You guys see the article in Guru Focus? No, I haven't. Cletus, share a little bit about that in the chat if you can, and we will take a look at it. Probably not live, but we'll take a look at it. Curious to see that. And they want, and Gurn says, and I agree, I have not found an environment that I find enjoyable. Gurn says, I would love them to throw us a new environment sometime. One less gloomy than Lake Varanga. I agree with you. There's no place I want to hang out in environments at this point. It's just too. I want something sunny, and I want something more experiential. I know Eric and I have argued about this in terms of the beach one, but still, I just have not been pulled into environments. So
there was a recent one on Reddit. They were using an app to build a mapping of a ceiling and then mapping in a sky scene. And then you could add things like rainbows and stuff. But that was a bright environment in the ceiling.
Yeah.
So I'll go back and look at that. If I can get it to work, I will bring it up in a future episode.
So let's talk about apps. And we'll talk about apps that we've looked at or played with this week, and I'll try and pull them up as we go along for folks who want to see them. And I'm going to start with Hello Dot. Have you tried this app?
You can waste a lot of time with that app.
Really? And the graphic here does not. Oh, here the graphic is there. That's what you get.
They need to maybe work on the controls a bit, but I spent a lot of time trying to get Dot to jump from the floor to the sofa onto the back of a dog. Does not do moving objects really well.
But you use your essentially what I just played with this first, creating Dot, and then there's like a bucket of paint you can pull them into. And then it changes color. I don't know how much time I'm going to waste with Dot. I don't, unless Dot can pour me a drink or console me when I've had a bad day. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. But the idea that like a laser beam shoots out of your finger and you point at it and Dot jumps over to it, and then you can move it someplace else and Dot jumps over to it. And I don't know how to get Dot in my hands like that. Picture on the left hand.
If you hold your hand out, a circle will appear and then Dot jumps into it.
Oh, okay. Well, you obviously have spent a lot of time with Dot. And this is free, is it?
I thought there was a charge on it.
Price is free.
Oh, then maybe that was another one I was looking at. Huh.
Yeah.
But it was fun to play with. Yeah. I don't know if I would go back and play multiple times, but
it's not going to cost anything.
Time than I spent way more time than I should have running Dot around the living room and down the hall and back. And
here's another article I found on Dot. And the buzz was on Dot like last week, and I don't think we got to Dot. So I wanted to. No. I didn't want to do that. So we didn't get to Dot last week as we did. You have one. Let's do HoloWisp Lab first.
Yeah.
This I saw on Reddit, and it's still kind of in development. But the thing that they got straight was the idea that you can decorate a virtual tree. And they have some other things. When you open up the app, there are things that are on a table. The tree is one of them. And then there are some other spaces it looks like they're going to be doing some more developing. Did you try this? Did you try to build a tree in your front room?
Yep, I decorated. I had a couple of ornaments that were hanging in midair. I had to go move those, but I got those, and I kind of wish that I could nudge the star a little bit higher. It looks like you can, but I was never able to. It kept falling through the branches. But it was entertaining enough that I put ornaments all over the tree. It was the easiest decorating, putting away I have ever had.
Well, let me tell you, the other piece with that was the fun of, for me, I quickly discovered that you could drop ornaments. So it's like you could smash plates like that other app that we talked about.
So you drop them and they break?
I was picking them up and then I was dropping them. And there's like a square platform. You don't see it. It's like an invisible pad that appears when you drop the ornament and it hits the ground on the pad. It cracks, and it's kind of fun. Kind of a little bit
I did not lose any in my loading up the tree. I'll have to go back.
Okay, so do you want to talk about? Let me get it into frame here. You want to talk about this app, which is Piano Pro. I'd assume you put that one in.
Yeah, and I was really hopeful. The demo is kind of neat. When you get in and you open the app, it gives you the option of c- uh, playing with only one finger or not. And after I played with it for a while, I realized it's because playing with multiple fingers, they don't quite, it's not exacting enough. So it works, but you need a lot of light, and it's easy for it to kind of not quite be able to tell that you've hit two keys or that you're still pressing down two keys. Like it'll press one, okay, and then the other one it'll press and release, and it'll play at multiple notes. So the concept I really liked. The sound of the piano was fine. It's better with just one finger. So if you hunt and peck piano play, this is your product. I'm thinking it's easy enough that, all right, it's early enough in its development that it'll continue to get better. But right now, there are too many cases where it can't see where your finger is exactly. So if you use multiple fingers, it can see one and the other is occluded, and it can't tell if you're pressing something or not.
Yeah, Simply Piano I think I reviewed that last week and played with it. And are you a piano player? Have you had any training in piano playing?
You mean good? No.
But I mean at all.
I
Have
can
you ever sat down
a
with
tiny bit.
instruction?
I mean, I got through, several months, and I got to the
Well,
point where I could play the piece that was assigned and using more than one hand and with chords.
wow. That's much further than what I got. And what I got, meaning I never even sat in front of one. Um,
Ah,
I think we
I mean,
have
I have
sort
like
of.
a real piano right next to me over in the other room.
Yeah, well, that was not part of my life. I had one of those teeny little box organs that had letters or
Yeah.
numbers on them, and then the the music that you got were letters and numbers. That was it.
Oh, neat. Okay.
But you ought to take a look at Simply Piano. I was real impressed with it, and look at the demo video or look at the commercial
Hmm.
for it, I guess, and it gives you an idea of the whole app and what it can do. And then so I was sucked in, and I'm like, okay, I got to try this thing. And I tried it, and it was like, okay, here's your first lesson. We're going to show you where middle C is, and then the key next to it, and play middle C and then play the key. And then it's like, okay, now let's give you the half steps, and we'll show you what those half
Okay.
steps are. And at the time you would see it, they would show it on music as it was coming across.
Oh, nice.
And so I don't read music, but it gave me an idea of this is what this is, and this is the key that represents that. Well, they kept adding a few keys, and they're like, okay, now let's have you try this. And you try it and you wind up playing a melody. And it's like, oh. So
That's
for
kinda
like
cool.
a non music, not somebody not trained in music, it was cool because when I come to, and to me, I see it as gaming. But when I get involved in gaming, I have to have an immediate sense of agency. And if I fail too much too soon, that's it. I just wasted my money and I'll never play that again. I don't want it to be so simple, but this really was most people would say it's simple, but I need simple. But it moved me along. It gave me a sense of, okay, I can accomplish this and then I can go on to the next lesson, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I would take a look at Simply Piano if you want to
Yeah,
play
that sounds
with
like
that
fun.
for you or for anybody
Yeah.
listening. And I think I talked about it last week or the week before. So I think that's all we've got for tonight. We've gone a little over an hour, so I'll clean this up and we'll put together the show. Follow the live stream on YouTube at Vision Profiles on Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, or catch the video later on YouTube or the audio on any pod catcher service. Is there anything new with anything else you want to say before I finish the show off?
No, I'm good for now. I'm just waiting for the new software. When that comes out,
We just got the new software. I mean, what do you mean the new software?
release candidate. It's not really out. I want it really out. I want the final version that's actually officially out, so everybody has it and everybody's upgraded, and then we can all talk about it and try stuff, and I'm not going to be running betas and release candidates. I will just feel better.
Oh, come on. Who do you know that has an Apple Vision Pro that's not running the beta and the release candidates and the developer beta at all,
Well, they don't have it at the Apple Store. So you're not getting a demo with it yet. And I know there are a few people who haven't done it because they still talk about having, a virtual screen that is blurry.
Yeah, well, anybody that's talking about it is talking about the latest developer beta and what's new with the latest developer beta. As dangerous as it is, people are running the developer beta. So I don't anticipate the frustration of running developer betas is that it's incremental. All the changes are incremental over a long period of time. And then the new release comes out and everybody's excited about it except you, because you've seen it all before. So yeah, there's nothing magical about that day for me. I did put something out under Vision Pro Focus. We did this conversation with Chuck Joyner. He has put it together as a video. Actually, he put it together as a 2-part video. And I took the audio and put the 2 parts together. And it's the 10 things that you should do when you get your new Vision Pro, Apple Vision Pro. And it's interesting. I won't give away any surprises, but you went down one track and I went down sort of another track. This is the fun, exciting visual stuff that you can do. And Eric's like, here's how you can use it for work, which is good because our audience is both of those. And I think we created both separate lists of 10, and we just went over what we thought were our top 5, and we wound up doing a lot of the same ones to start off with because we thought this is the first thing that you need to do. Well, that's available now. It's been available on Mac Voices. Chuck Joyner has produced the video of that in 2 parts. And I just tonight before the show produced the audio by blending the 2 parts together, cutting off the tail end of one, cutting off the intro to the other. And it's now one long show with all 10 suggestions in there. So look for that on our channel, on our podcast channel, and you can look for it on Mac Voices. So we appreciate Chuck helping us put together a Mac Pro Focus, which are longer conversations about what you can do with your Vision Pro. We did entertainment last time. We did this with the top 10 things. I forget what we're doing next, but we'll talk to Chuck about it and figure it out. Thank you for tuning in. We'd love to hear from our listeners. Thanks for the folks in the chat room. Now they're talking about Pet Rock Vision. Oh, there's some great stuff going in there. Totally devoid of anything we say. I don't care. I'm glad we're having side conversations. At least they're together listening to me troll on and then coming up with more important things to say to each other. We'd love to hear from our listeners. If you have ideas or want to join in on the episode, email us at visionprofilespodcast@gmail.com. Our bumper music is Free Jazzy by Steve Combs, courtesy of the Free Music Archive. Learn more about us and the Vision Profile podcast on our website, thepodtalk.net. Is where you can find us and find the link about Apple Vision Pro and the Vision Profiles podcast. Spread the word to other visionaries, and thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.